Zion, Zion, Zion. Well, that was a little quicker than we anticipated because after just 2 years, only 2 years, apparently he and his family are unhappy with the New Orleans Pelicans and some of his family members would like for him to be traded. This came from a reliable source at The Athletic, so it seems pretty legit. And well, before I get into the good stuff for New Orleans Pelicans fans, and trust me, I will talk about potential solutions because you have enough picks, you have enough young talent that you keep Ingram and Zion and you can make it work. But we have to talk about the ineptitude of some of these front office decisions because there's a reason he is unhappy. And it's not just because of the fact he didn't make the playoffs. It's because of the decisions that led to him not making the playoffs, because some of them have not just been baffling, but they have been downright bad. Downright bad. And we need to talk about that. Before I do that, if you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, it's just much appreciated. It helps out a ton. But as I'm saying, when you draft Zion Williamson, you know what you're getting into. You're getting pressure on your team to make the playoffs every single year. You're hopefully getting a generational talent, which has delivered, had one of the best second-year seasons in NBA history. And well, the pressure wasn't even as high as you would have expected externally. Maybe that's why his family had to come out with this kind of article and talk to the media, because they would have expected ESPN and everyone to be talking about, does Zion need to leave? That would have put the pressure on the Pelicans. But no one was putting the pressure on the Pelicans. And I think if this is Zion's way of just telling the Pelicans, put some pressure on that organization to make the right decisions, I have no problem with that. Yeah, some people will say it's entitlement, just after 2 years, all of this. I have no problem. When you look at the things that have transpired over the first 2 years, it's been a mess. It's been an absolute mess. Let's take it back to just before he got there, Anthony Davis was on his way out the door. What do you think if you're a generational player looking at another generational player? Oh, hey, AD, I'm Zion. Oh, you're leaving because you don't like New Orleans? You want to get out because the franchise hasn't done well to you? Okay, that's a little bit concerning, but anyways, we'll move on. And then you miss a lot of that season through injury, your team doesn't make the playoffs, you go to the bubble, it's a mess, and then Alvin Gentry, your first coach, gets fired. Oh, Drew Holiday, hey, the second best player that was on that team with Anthony Davis. Oh, you need to leave to go to a contender as well, so you're getting traded, and all we're getting in return is Eric Bledsoe's terrible contract and picks that aren't going to be useful until 2024. Oh, that is also a little bit concerning. Now I'm starting to get a little bit concerned if I'm Zion and I see the two best players from a team that couldn't win and went to other situations. AD won straight away, and Drew Holiday is on the verge of potentially making the Eastern Conference Finals. If you're Zion, that plays on your mind a little bit. And then we'll just talk about recently this offseason where it's been reported that Josh Hart wants out of New Orleans, and so does Lonzo Ball. Oh, and Brandon Ingram apparently had a bad relationship with Stan Van Gundy. Apparently Zion's family don't like Stan Van Gundy either. So, yeah, there's been a lot of things going. Oh, I didn't even mention the fact that someone whose podcast he's been on twice, apparently one of his favorite vets, apparently one of his best friends in the New Orleans team, JJ Redick. He got traded. He then publicly came out on the podcast and said, you cannot trust the front office in New Orleans. He publicly came out on the podcast like the day after he got traded and said he does not trust New Orleans and he does not like that franchise, or he doesn't like David Griffin and how it's being run. You don't think Zion and JJ get on the phone a few days after he's been traded and talk to each other and JJ says to him all of the things that went down and why you shouldn't trust David Griffin. I don't think JJ Redick really liked Stan Van Gundy as a coach either. You don't think those two talk about those things, particularly if they had a close relationship like it's reported? That's a thing you have to keep in mind when you're David Griffin, when you're looking to trade someone. You need to look at what other players will think of this. These guys aren't just pieces that you move across the chessboard. It's not like you were even making a great move either. You brought in James Johnson. Like, okay, just trade him to a place he wants to be so players can look at it and be like, oh, I can have a little bit of faith in this guy making the right decisions. He trades away one of Zion's closer friends to a team that he didn't want to go, to a city that he didn't want to go. That's not great. So all of those things have happened. You have players who want out in Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart. You have players that had to get traded to go to a franchise in order to win. And again, this is not me coming at Pelicans fans. I feel sorry for you guys because you've had to deal with this. When I talk about the ineptitude of a front office, it's got nothing to do with the fans. The front office is the ones that deserve the blame, not Zion, not the fans, for wanting better for their team. Yeah, David Griffin has done a bad job. It's that simple. He's done a bad job. I don't care if you got Brandon Ingram. I don't care if you got any of these things. You've done a bad job. It's that simple. But we need to look at how you can rectify that, because Those are the reasons why you'd be unhappy. Those are the reasons why you didn't make the playoffs, because you did all of those silly things and you only got Eric Bledsoe. You re-signed Steven Adams. Those two are making a combined $70 million over the next 2 years. I genuinely feel sick. $70 million between Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe over the next 2 years. And you wonder why this guy is unhappy with the direction of this team. That's right there. Steven Adams, Eric Bledsoe. Do I need to say anything more? That could be the video right there, and you could understand that, click off it, and you've got your answer. But we're looking for more answers. We're looking for a way in which Zion could be happy, could make the playoffs, and could stay on the Pelicans. And I'm looking for teams that would want to take on tough contracts in order for some draft capital and potentially the likes of Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Yeah, sure, you probably don't want to give up those guys. They look pretty promising. I like what those guys have. Jackson Hayes showed some potential to stretch the floor. He showed some signs. Nickeil Alexander-Walker showed some signs as well. Ideally, you don't want to get rid of those guys. This isn't an ideal world. You got to give up things. You got to give up first-round picks. You got to give up first-round pick talent to get players in return. And I'm looking at the Indiana Pacers because this is a team that I see, they've been middling for a while. They've been good, they've been average, they were average this season. You've got Miles Turner and Malcolm Brogdon, who would not only fit the Pelicans perfectly, we'll talk about that in a second, but looking at Indiana's perspective, because you need both teams to be happy for them to make a trade. They've got Karis LeVert, they've got Sabonis. In terms of Brogdon and Turner, for their value, because they're both valuable players, they're not actually that valuable to the Pacers, if you know what I'm saying, because you've got LeVert, you've got guys who can fill that kind of hole, that void that Brogdon had, and then in terms of Turner and Sabonis, they've never been a great fit, and you'd rather keep Sabonis. So then you look at New Orleans, you can give them draft picks. This is a team that they've been kind of unhappy, they've been middling, you give them a ton of draft picks, they'll still stay relatively competitive because they've got Sabonis unless they look to completely blow it up, but then they'll also have some draft picks coming through, and then also the likes of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, potentially Jackson Hayes. And if I'm New Orleans, I'm doing that. Miles Turner fits perfectly. He can defend, he can stretch the floor alongside Zion Williamson. You get Malcolm Brogdon. He can also defend. He can run the pick and roll. He's a 3-level scorer. He's a really dependable player. That's what you need. You've got star power. You've got Zion and Brandon Ingram. That alone is enough to make the playoffs if you can build around them. And I see Miles Turner and Malcolm Brogdon as the perfect pieces. If I'm looking at an ideal trade, I'm not getting into the full logistics because I'm not a general manager, but I think the contracts could match because there's hefty salaries on Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe, but you're doing that if I'm New Orleans. I'm doing whatever it takes. 4 first-round picks, I don't care. I know it seems ridiculous, but you're getting rid of guys that are almost worth a first-round pick in terms of having to offload them in Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. You give up whatever it takes to get in some good players, obviously within reason, but whatever it takes to get in some good players that could help you win and that fit your team. And those are the two that I'm looking at. That is the perfect situation. I look at other teams, you think of the Thunder, all of these teams. I don't think these teams are looking to blow it up. I think these teams are looking to ascend. Like, you can think of these teams that are towards the bottom, but I think all of them are looking to ascend. It's the ones that are middling, I think, that could blow it up. Maybe a Washington Wizards could get rid of Bradley Beal. That's a stretch. They just seem too stubborn to do that, so I wouldn't bank on that. But the Pacers, perfect fit in my opinion. Just make that happen. That would be so ideal for so many reasons, and both teams would be happy in my estimations. Other trades that have been rumored, I mean, you've got the Porzingis one I saw Bleacher Report talk about. I don't want that front court. I like Porzingis. I think he still has all-star potential, but that defensive front court, that's not enough. That's not what I want as a defensive front court. I don't like that. Kemba Walker, why are you trading bad contracts for bad contracts? That's not going to help you get over the line. Kemba Walker, no. You need to get some players that are pretty good in terms of the age profile, that are going to be consistent, high-level role players. You've got your star-level players. You need those high-level role players. Ideally, you keep the likes of Lonzo as well, but I don't know how that's going to happen. And then looking into free agency, again, I don't know how the money matches up, but add a shooter to that mix. Say you've got Malcolm Brogdon. Say you've got Miles Turner, Brandon Ingram, and Zion. Those are the only 4 pieces, as of right now, we would know about because they need to trade some things to get rid of them. As I said, Josh Hart and Lonzo apparently want out of this franchise, so they might be gone. So at least you've got those 4 pieces. Who do you add to that mix? Well, you need another guard. You could look for a shooting guy like a Duncan Robinson. he's going to be free in free agency, a Tim Hardaway Jr. Those guys that can be spark plugs, that come off screens, dribble handoffs with Zion Williamson. He's going to create the space, the guys that can make that secondary pass over the top to Zion cutting to the rim. Those are the guys you want. Those are the guys that could be on offer, and those are the ones that I'd be looking for in terms of free agency. Also adding some depth to your bench. I know you're going to lose some of your depth getting rid of Jackson Hayes and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but the depth this season is the reason Zion had to spend so much time with the second unit, because the depth was absolutely terrible, and he was there to try and lift them up to mediocrity as a second unit, which he did because he's that good. But try and get some depth in terms of your second unit. Try to get some guys through free agency. Just do the things. Just make the right veteran moves. That Indiana deal, it's really actually, I'm excited just at the thought of that. I think that would be perfect. I'm sure there's some other deals that you guys could think of, but I genuinely think there's probably only a handful of teams that would be willing to take picks so advanced in the future in terms of the Milwaukee Bucks picks that aren't really relevant for a few years, or at least a couple of their picks in the next few years, alongside Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. There aren't too many teams that I think would be willing to do it. I think they could be one of those teams, and that they also happen to have the perfect pieces to match with Zion and Ingram. So that's what I'd be looking to do. Don't blame this all on Zion. Don't blame this on the fans or anyone else apart from David Griffin and that front office for making bad decisions after bad decisions. But they can still rectify it because they've got a lot of draft picks, and more importantly, they've got one of the most talented players in the NBA who's probably going to be a top 10 player next season. Make it work, New Orleans. Keep him there. You've got the assets. You got to make a move. There's no more waiting around for the future. There's no more in 5 years' time. We're going to have 12 picks. We're going to have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, all these things. Do it now. There's no time to waste. Oh, also, I didn't even talk about the head coaching thing. I'd like to see like an established guy, but if they want to go for like the likes of a Teresa Weatherspoon, who I know has a good relationship with Zion, do it. If you get enough talent, it won't matter too much. I mean, I know, great words of wisdom from me, but if you have enough talent in there, like it won't matter too much until the playoffs, where then you can make another adjustment if you need to. The coaching, get that fixed for sure, but just get the talent right for sure. Just get the talent right. Anyways, have a good day. Catch you next time. Bye.